She was a young mother trying to leave the street life behind.
She wanted to set a good example for her daughter.
She had already enrolled in college.
She was trying to become a nurse.
She really set her sights on a new life.
But she would never get the chance.
There was smoke coming out of the house.
There apparently had been food burning on the stove.
There was a trail of blood that led to her body.
She was shot twice in her face.
Had her life on the streets finally caught up to her?
A lot of young people don't understand what comes with that lifestyle.
Most of the homicides that I covered were related to drugs.
Was it a more personal motive?
She had no clothing from her waist down.
Was she sexually assaulted?
Or did someone see her new life as a threat?
She had to leave him.
He wanted to continue that lifestyle.
And without her, he was nothing.
December 20th, 1996. Christmas is just around the corner in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a city of 50,000, 2 hours west of Philly.
Harrisburg is very interesting in that it is the capital city of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so there are a lot of opportunities here, lots of jobs and state government. But then when you look within certain parts of the city, you do see where there are impoverished people.
And in 1996, there are few places in Harrisburg more impoverished than the Allison Hill neighborhood.
It's a community that has suffered, and they've been trying to revitalize it for many years, but unfortunately, a lot of criminal activity still happens there.
There's a lot of drug abuse. There's a lot of panhandling, poverty. Socioeconomic status is pretty low.
There's a lot of homicides in Allison Hill. You go there and neighbors are worried about their neighborhood.
And for one Allison Hill resident, this afternoon brings a new worry. It's a little after noon when Iris Belcher's brother notices smoke coming from the home across the street where his sister Iris lives.
He was really concerned about his sister.
Rushing over, he's met outside by Iris's boyfriend, Tyshant Love.
Where's Iris? She's upstairs.
As soon as that happened, he told the brother that something was wrong with Iris. And he took the brother into the house.
She's upstairs. It's bad.
Come on.
He said he came home and found something burning on the stove.
There was blood downstairs in the kitchen, and there was blood spatter going upstairs.
And when he followed the blood upstairs, he found Iris.
She was on the floor, laid down.
She was shot twice in her face.
At first glance, 20-year-old Iris Spinell Belcher appeared to have a bright future ahead of her.
She was a beautiful young woman, very intelligent young woman.
Iris had a really bubbly personality. She was just immediately likable. Everyone that came into contact with her really liked her. And she seemed to have so much potential.
But she'd also faced plenty of obstacles in her short life.
The environment she grew up in was extremely difficult.
It's difficult when there's a lot of drug trade to persevere through all of the outside influences that may bring you down.
And an unexpected pregnancy at age 15 didn't help.
Having a child at an early age is quite stressful.
That's a lot of balls to juggle.
If you don't have any help or any support, that alone can be extremely stressful or anxiety-provoking. How can you take care of yourself and take care of a child?
With few options to support herself, after Iris moved out on her own, she turned to drug dealing.
How Iris grew up explains a lot of why she entered the drug business.
Sometimes when people grow up in crime areas, it is ingrained in them.
It's just a twisted system. If you're coming up in that system and you're trying to say, I want to better myself, how do you get money?
Unfortunately, we don't live in a society where everyone has an equal opportunity to make a great life for themselves. And sometimes people do feel that the only option they have is to deal drugs or engage in some other illegal activity.
That's what she knew, and she was comfortable around it.
She was also good at it.
She was extremely intelligent, so it was easy for her to pick it up and make money doing it and support herself and her daughter.
She became really well known within the drug community and successful.
And she soon fell in with a group of dealers based out of New York City.
We had a lot of individuals coming down from New York City and selling drugs here because it was so lucrative. The drugs would be sold for so much more money, and they kept their contacts in New York, and then they would come down here and sell the drugs for more money and make a profit.
One of those New York drug dealers was Tyshant Love.
He was known as the professor. He had a studious air about him.
I never understood the relationship. It was one of those relationships where you look and you go, I don't get it. But she was in that drug life. He was in that drug life. They had lots in common.
But what really brought them together was the way Tyshant treated Iris's daughter.
Hey, babe. Oh no, she sleep already?
Yeah, I just got her down.
I got this for her though.
As a single mother, when the person that is now in the picture and is accepting of the child that you had before them, it does bring a sense of hope and a sense of family.
Well, you stay the night, right?
I mean, yeah, I could just give it to her tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
That's where the connection became strong.
Ooh, I love the way that sounds.
The thought of becoming a family also sparked a change in Iris.
She wanted to better her life.
She was trying to get out of the drug trade and do something better for her family. One of the ways you do that is by education.
She had been accepted into the nursing program at Harrisburg Area Community College.
She really set her sights on a new life.
But now it appears that Iris's new life has come to a sudden, violent end.
After seeing smoke coming from her house, Iris's brother goes across the street to investigate.
He approached the property and he saw Tyshant come out. He was very panicked.
Yo, where's Iris? She's upstairs. Bad.
He took the brother into the house. They found Iris.
She was found in the bedroom with gunshot wounds.
Tyshant told her brother, you call 911.
Call 911, call 911.
And then he left the scene.
Iris, wake up, Iris. Where you going?
After years of dealing drugs to make ends meet, single mother Iris Fennell Belcher was turning her life around.
She wanted more for her life and for her daughter. She decided she wanted out of the game, and she applied and got accepted to nursing school.
But now it's Iris who's in desperate need of medical attention.
Her boyfriend Tyshant and her brother have just found Iris on her bedroom floor.
She was found in the bedroom with gunshot wounds.
And then, after telling Iris's brother to call 911, Tyshant had run out the door.
I'll be back. I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
Tyshant said something along the lines of, I know what happened, and I'm going to go take care of it.
Within minutes, sirens converge on the neighborhood.
It's chaotic. There's a lot of police that show up.
They enter the house with guns drawn.
No, hurry! She's right here! The first thing the officer has to do in a situation like this is actually clear the house.
But all they find is Iris's body on the bedroom floor.
She had 2 very close contact wounds, one going to the front of her mouth and one that went through her cheeks.
And given her past, the victim is well known to the police.
DOA on the scene, 20-year-old female, Iris Belcher, send major crimes to the location.
I knew her, and I actually kind of liked her.
In this profession, you learn to hate the crime and not the person.
The detectives work quickly to try and determine what happened.
When we do an investigation for a homicide, we start at the body.
And the way she was killed, 2 close-range shots to the face. It seems significant.
That gives a very personal feeling to it, perhaps indicating that the killer was someone that she knew.
Although, given the world she moved in, that doesn't rule out a drug-related murder.
Maybe it was a rival dealer or an associate that double-crossed her.
You don't see too many random killings. It's usually drug deal gone bad or, some kind of criminal activity. Tensions can certainly flare up as a result of that.
However, there are also signs that suggest a different motive.
Her legs were spread and her genitalia was exposed.
The concern was that there was a sexual assault that took place.
There were signs of a struggle. There was some furniture knocked over.
Let's check downstairs.
While the killer's motive is unclear, it's easy to see how the deadly attack progressed.
Whatever was going on started in the kitchen.
There was burnt food, which means that an attack possibly happened in the middle of getting ready for a meal.
Then, based on the blood trail, it appears Iris's attacker dragged her upstairs.
The detectives find a clump of hair on the stairs.
They thought perhaps there was an altercation that happened on the stairs.
And perhaps most tragic of all, there's a Christmas tree in the living room with gifts underneath.
I'm sure she wanted to spend Christmas with her family, and to have her life tragically cut short 5 days before Christmas was gut-wrenching.
Just as gut-wrenching as the task of telling Iris's brother that his sister is dead.
He is devastated by this loss.
And like the police, he suspects that her death could be drug-related.
I kept telling her she's gonna get herself killed.
Iris's family really pleaded with her to leave the drug dealing. They were concerned for her safety.
And the message had finally gotten through.
Iris was trying to better her life by enrolling in nursing school.
I really thought she was gonna make it out.
Whenever you have somebody who's a drug dealer and they decide to get out, you root for them. It's like the underdog, and you want them to succeed.
Instead, it looked as if Iris's turnaround had been too little, too late.
So you came over and found her?
No, it was Tyson, her boyfriend.
Speaking with Iris's brother, the police learned that Tyshawn was at the scene, but he left shortly thereafter.
Did he say why?
He just said he wanted to get whoever did this.
So he knew who it was?
That's what he said.
The family knew she and Tyshawn were both involved in drugs, and that possibly this could have something to do with that.
However, it's not the only possibility they have to consider.
A lot of acts of violence originate from some sort of domestic altercation between romantic partners.
And since Tyshawn was allegedly the person that found her, the detectives are going to have to rule him out.
The detectives make finding Tyshawn their first priority.
Dispatch. I need a bolo on Tyson Love.
They issued a bolo, and he was found pretty quickly.
Tyshawn Love was brought to the police department to be interviewed.
When questioned by the detectives, Tyshawn says that Iris had been home alone the night before her murder.
Where were you? I went out.
Tyshawn tells detectives that he went to a bar.
And Iris's daughter was spending the night at her mother's house.
She had been spending a lot of time with her mom because of Iris's lifestyle.
Her mom, she didn't really like what we've been doing. Selling drugs.
After the bar, Tyshawn said he'd gone to a friend's place.
He said he crashed there for a few hours.
You went back to the house?
Mm-hmm.
He said that he returned home and found her body.
And he says that as soon as he saw Iris dead on the floor, he knew who did it.
Who? Lamar. Lamar Peterson. Yeah, that's him.
I knew Lamar Peterson.
He loomed large in the drug community.
And it's not hard for the detective to believe that he's their killer.
He has a very troubled past, a lot of sexual assault.
There are some people in this world that just, I can't say anything else, they perpetrate evil.
Tyshawn Love has just told detectives investigating the murder of his girlfriend, Iris Fennell Belcher, that he knows who did it.
Lamar.
He said it was a fellow drug dealer named Lamar Peterson.
Lamar and Tyshawn were associates from the group of New York drug dealers, but I also knew that he was very violent.
And Lamar's reputation seems like a match to Iris's murderer.
Lamar Peterson was a violent sexual offender and was a suspect in a very violent sexual assault attempted homicide in Harrisburg.
According to Tyshawn, he'd also been staying with them.
You knew y'all been looking for him on that rape thing, and he wanted to stay with us for a little while until things cooled off.
Lamar was somebody that if you wanted to stay someplace, you really didn't reject him.
You don't argue with Lamar, and when he says jump, you just ask how high.
He was an individual that I didn't want to confront unless I had the manpower around me to confront him.
But according to Tyshawn, Iris wasn't intimidated by Lamar.
Apparently, Iris was really upset with Lamar staying there.
She just did not feel comfortable with him there, especially with their daughter.
And she did not bite her tongue in making it known her disdain towards him because of some acts he had allegedly committed.
There had been arguments between Tyshawn and Iris about Lamar.
And Tyshawn says that when he hesitated to kick Lamar out, Iris took matters into her own hands.
She confronted him. They had an altercation, and she was really upset. She told me he had to leave.
She ever threatened him? Yeah.
She said if he didn't go, she'd tell the police where he was. Basically turning him in for rape, which gave him no other choice but to leave.
So, according to Tyshawn, Lamar had packed his things and left. But had he come back?
Tyshawn says if someone hurt Iris, it was definitely Lamar.
People didn't tell him no. There was a definite amount of respect for him.
And killing Iris may have been a way for him to save face.
And the crime appears to have Lamar's MO written all over it.
She had no clothing from her waist down.
And Lamar had a history of sexual assaults.
They think that possibly Iris could be one of Lamar's victims.
But while the police consider Lamar a possible suspect, they aren't ready to let Tyshawn off the hook just yet.
And how are things between you and Iris lately?
Honestly, not so great.
Tyshawn tells detectives they have the same argument a lot. Iris wants better for herself and she wants out of the game. But he likes things the way they are and doesn't want to change.
When you have conflicting views and conflicting desires or purposes in life, it does bring tension to the relationship.
And Tyshawn admits that last night, things got so tense, he had to get out of the house.
According to Tyshawn, That's why he'd gone to the bar.
He went just to get away from the situation.
But he says that Iris showed up at the same spot just a few hours later.
Tyshawn became enraged. This was opposite of everything that she said. She said she wanted to stay home, but here she was at a bar. They really got into a fight. He stormed off, but when he looked back, Iris was gone.
After that, Tyshawn says he stayed at the bar to drown his sorrows.
There was a woman there, Vanessa Ortiz. They were talking, they hit it off, and she eventually invited him back to her place.
And that's where you spent the night. Yeah, but ain't nothing happened.
Tyshawn says they just stayed on the couch and watched a movie. But he woke up the next morning and he felt incredibly guilty.
And at a little before noon, he'd headed home.
He went to go smooth things over with Iris. But when he walked into the bedroom, he saw this heinous crime.
And you had nothing to do with this? No, sir.
He said that he loved Iris and he would never do that to her.
And when police tracked down Vanessa Ortiz, it seems Tyshawn is telling the truth.
We found out that she was with Tyshawn Love that night. Tyshawn and Vanessa had met in a bar, and she said they then went back to her house to spend the night.
While the detectives spend the next 48 hours searching for Lamar, the news of Iris's murder spreads across the city.
In the mid-90s, there was no social media presence, really. There weren't cell phones like there are today, so people would get their paper in the morning and they would watch the nightly news to see what happened.
And the details about Iris's death struck a chord with people.
There are homicides that occur in the city where not even the news picks up on them. But Iris was not that kind of homicide. It was one of those that affected a lot of people.
So there's a lot of pressure to solve this murder.
And once the detectives track down Lamar, it looks like they're on the right track.
They bring Lamar in and they realize something very interesting.
We saw that there was blood on his boots.
Detectives investigating Iris Belcher's murder have brought notorious drug dealer Lamar Peterson in for questioning.
Iris's boyfriend Tyshawn had previously told detectives that he believes Lamar killed Iris.
Lamar Peterson. Yeah, that's him.
And as soon as the detectives sit down with Lamar, they suspect Tyshawn may be right.
On his shoes, there's a splatter of blood. Also, he has a history of sexual assault, and Iris was found in a compromised manner that looks like it could be sexual assault.
You start to put two and two together and say, okay, is this gonna come out to 4?
When the detectives ask Lamar about Iris's murder, he denies any involvement.
Lamar says despite his troubled past, it was not him, and he had nothing to do with her murder.
She didn't threaten to turn you in?
Man, she always saying stuff like that.
Detectives try to press him further, but Lamar remains silent.
He refuses to give them any more information.
But they may not need him to.
We noticed blood on your boot.
Any idea how that got there?
Lamar wouldn't talk, but because we saw that there was blood on those boots, we were able to take the boots of Lamar and we sent him to the Pennsylvania Police Lab.
After collecting his boots, detectives take Lamar into custody, but not for murder.
They hold him on the sexual assault charge that Iris supposedly threatened to turn him in on.
But detectives are still waiting for the DNA results when they get Iris's autopsy report.
The autopsy determined that she had been shot twice at extremely close range.
The first one was through the cheeks. That probably wouldn't have killed her.
Defensive wounds were indicated on her body.
She was fighting back.
And then she was killed with the one through the mouth.
However, there is one surprise in the report.
They determined there was no sexual assault.
So It's very puzzling.
Still, when the detectives get the DNA results on Lamar's boots back from the lab, they appear to be more than enough to seal his fate.
The blood that was on that boots was Iris's.
But before they charge Lamar with murder, the detectives get an unexpected tip about Vanessa Ortiz, the young woman who was Tyshawn's alibi.
According to a tipster, Vanessa had been bragging to her friends about seeing the murder take place. And Tyshawn had her hidden in a hotel so the police could not further question her.
The detectives rush to the hotel and bring Vanessa in for questioning.
She says she did spend the night with Tyshawn.
But she also tells detectives that his alibi is fake.
She said Tyshawn Love is the murderer.
Okay, so how do you know that?
Because I was there.
Vanessa tells detectives that on the morning after Tyshawn spent the night, she accompanied him back to his place.
They saw Iris cooking breakfast, and Iris was really upset that there was another woman in her home.
Who is she?
None of your business.
She and Tyshawn got into an altercation, and it became physical quickly.
What you mean none of my business? This is my house.
No, this is my house.
This is our house.
No, it's not. I pay bills here. I'm the man here.
At some point during this argument, he pulled a gun out from under the stove.
Where I'm going now, huh?
Okay, so you saw him shoot her?
No.
Vanessa claims that Tyshawn pistol whipped her.
He grabbed her by her hair, dragged her upstairs.
And then Vanessa heard gunshots coming from upstairs.
She knew that Tyshawn had shot Iris twice.
So you didn't actually see him do it?
No.
Then, according to Vanessa, Tyshawn came back downstairs and they left.
If anybody asks, I was with you last night and today. Got it? Come on.
He was desperate. He needed an alibi because he knew everything was going to point towards him, and he used her. That was just an act of desperation because a young girl like that is the last person he should have used as an alibi.
Then, after stashing Vanessa at a hotel, detectives suspect he went back home to stage the scene to further distance himself from the crime.
He went back and took off Iris's pants.
And then he pointed the finger at Lamar.
Do you have any idea who would do this?
Lamar.
Tyshawn was trying to ride the Lamar Peterson wave of violence, saying that Iris was just another one of his victims.
But there was a weak link in his plan. Vanessa.
This was overwhelming to her. There was no way she was going to hold that secret forever. There was no way she could do it.
And her story matches the physical evidence at the scene.
Vanessa's eyewitness account is enough for the detectives to take Tyshawn into custody.
We were able to get an arrest warrant.
He continues to stick to his story.
His account was Lamar Peterson did this.
Which means there's a lot riding on Vanessa.
The government was heavily relying on her statements in order to convict Mr. Love.
And as the case moved towards trial, the prosecutors suddenly had a big problem.
Vanessa would not cooperate anymore.
As prosecutors prepare to put Iris Belcher's boyfriend, Tyshawn Love, on trial for murder, the case collapses when their star witness, Vanessa Ortiz, suddenly stops cooperating.
She got subpoenaed to the courtroom multiple times, and she was not showing up.
She had seen what happened to Iris, and she was terrified that it was going to happen to her, and she didn't want to talk.
And without her testimony, the prosecution has no case.
When it went to the prelim, the charges were dropped because Vanessa wouldn't testify.
He becomes free again until such time that the government decides to refile the charges.
This news hits Iris's mother particularly hard.
She believed that it was Tyshawn who murdered her daughter, and it had to be gut-wrenching for her. It is just the worst thing ever. I mean, it's just, I can only imagine what she was going through.
When families are not able to have justice, it leaves them in a lot of emotionally distress.
But even though they've dropped the charges, Tyshawn is never entirely off the detective's radar.
When it comes to the crime of murder, there is no statute of limitations in Pennsylvania, and so those charges can always be refiled at a date in the future.
Over time, is it that easy? No, it's not that easy.
It was assigned to other detectives. They weren't able to make headway.
But you still don't ever give up, especially if you believe that this case can eventually lead to something.
Eventually, the case ends up on the desk of Detective Donald Hefner.
I was working several homicides at the time. A couple of them were cold cases, but I felt that this was a case that could be solved. And I decided to put my efforts into it.
Sometimes you need another set of eyes to look at something from another point of view.
Even if that means starting over from the beginning.
I spoke to everybody I could. I mean, in these kind of cases, that's what you do. You kind of flip over every rock you can find to see what's underneath. And a lot of it is nothing, but sometimes it's something.
After some digging, Detective Hefner develops a sense of just how tumultuous Iris and Tyshawn's relationship had been.
Yeah, our relationship was pretty toxic.
He was painted as jealous.
Friends also said he was abusive.
On the outside, it looked like Iris and Tyshawn had a great relationship. On the inside, it wasn't so great. There was a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting, which led to sometimes physical altercations.
As time goes on, the brutality increases.
Until Iris had reached her limit.
I learned that she had told friends that she wanted to leave him.
And since she was his connection into Harrisburg's drug world, Tyshawn couldn't have that.
Iris brought him up in the social life, and without her, he was nothing.
But that's not enough to file new charges. There's still one loose end that needs tying up. Lamar Peterson.
We knew there was a problem with the case because of the blood on his boots and because of his violent behavior.
And if Tyshawn even went to trial for the murder, defense was sure to use Lamar to raise reasonable doubt.
What we couldn't verify is when that blood got on the boots. We don't know if there was another fight. We don't know if he was there when the gunshot occurred. We just don't know.
And Lamar, by this time in prison for an unrelated crime, refused to say.
I tried to close that loop, but Lamar wouldn't talk to me.
Which once again means everything is riding on Vanessa Ortiz.
Vanessa was the key.
Will she talk now that some time has passed?
I said to myself that there's a possibility that she is mature enough to talk about this, because I'm sure this has not left her alone.
And since Vanessa has become a mother in the interim, there may be a way to reach her.
You know Iris had a daughter, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the empathetic side kicks in, and it's just messed up. This little girl has no mom. And I have information that can find this little girl some closure.
She began opening up to me, and she started to relay details of what happened at that house.
She also changes her story.
She now says that she has seen Tyshawn shoot Iris.
To get Vanessa to finally open up was a big step in trying to solve this homicide.
In September of 2001, 5 years after Iris's murder, police arrest Tyshant for a second time. But once again, as the trial date approaches, the prosecutors are faced with a problem.
Vanessa is nowhere to be found.
Only this time, they're prepared.
They recorded her testimony, and they could use it in court.
Shortly before Tyshant Love is scheduled to finally stand trial for the murder of Iris Fennell Belcher, the prosecution's star witness disappears a second time.
When Vanessa refused to cooperate, the first time that Tyshant was supposed to stand trial, the prosecutors had been forced to drop the charges.
Without her testimony, there was no way to bound the case over to trial. So the case had to be dismissed.
But this time, the detectives and prosecutors are ready.
They have recorded her sworn statement.
And since it was all under oath, the prosecutors are able to use it in court when Tyshant finally stands trial in September of 2005.
Homicide happened in 1996, so it took 9 years for prosecutors to feel like they had enough evidence to take it to trial.
In their open, the prosecutors portray Tyshant as a vengeful boyfriend who refused to accept the end of a relationship.
Iris was getting ready to leave him. She was enrolled in school, she was trying to turn over a new leaf, and she was trying to leave the drug life behind.
She was also trying to leave her abusive boyfriend behind.
When people who have experienced domestic violence are trying to get out, those are the most dangerous times.
And when Tyshant brought Vanessa to the home on the morning of the murder and an argument ensued, Tyshant's anger boiled over into rage.
The gunshot wounds to the mouth, to me, indicated, shut your mouth.
But there was no way for Tyshant to shut Vanessa up.
Her recorded testimony was the key to the prosecution's case.
They had fun the night before. You come home with the person and you witness a murder. I can't imagine that depth of trauma that could have been for her.
Still, as powerful as Vanessa's recorded statement is, the defense also has some cards to play.
There's always going to be that thought that Lamar Peterson played a part in this homicide.
The fact that there were traces of Ms. Belcher's blood on Mr. Peterson's shoe signals to the jury, hey, there could be someone else who committed this crime.
And the prosecution never came up with a compelling explanation for how Iris's blood ended up on Lamar's boot.
I honestly think that Lamar Peterson was a witness to the violence. And because he was such a violent man, he just didn't care. So he saw what happened, and he was fine with it.
But will questions about Lamar be enough for Tyshant's acquittal?
When a verdict is read, the jury finds him guilty of third-degree murder.
In Pennsylvania, first-degree murder requires an intentional killing. There has to be premeditation. A second-degree murder, there is an underlying felony. And then third-degree murder, it's pretty much a killing with malice.
The judge sentences Tyshant to 30 years in prison.
The system did punish Tyshant for his violence and for taking another life, and we got closure for the family. Unfortunately, when you have these kind of homicides, or when you have a homicide investigation, we don't have justice. We have closure. In order to have justice, I have to make you kind of whole again. I can't do that. I can't bring that person back.
However, Iris's memory lives on in her daughter, now an adult with a family of her own.
to live with every day, knowing that your mother was taken from you before you even had a chance to get to know her. I can only imagine what impact that's had on her.
You can adapt to it. You can learn to live with it. You can't forget it.
Despite that, Iris's daughter has created a rich life for herself.
She also realized her mom's dream, and she became a nurse.
And in that way, Iris's legacy lives on.
I remember her family talking about her as somebody who had a lot of dreams and aspirations. She had planned to better her life for herself and her child, and she was well on her way to that when her life was tragically cut short.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Don Dragon. Where was his spatial positioning during this moment of tranquil contemplation? He was indoors, Your Honor, having just emerged from a refreshing aurora shower. So he was sequestered within your dwelling, not externally present. Correct, Your Honor. Now, your aurora shower is presumably located within your dwelling, in the bathing chambers. Is this chamber situated towards the lumina front of your home, or the lumina rear? Deanna hesitated. No, I mean, he was merely drying off. Your Honor, the bathing chamber is within the sleeping quarters. It's a bathroom. I am perfectly familiar with the concept of a bathroom, Ms. Dondragon, Judge Baflumach said, her voice dripping with judicial impatience. My question was simple. Is your bathing chamber located at the front of your Lumina home, or the rear? The rear, Your Honor, in the back, by the Lumina driveway. I could even furnish you with a precise schematic, should Your Honor desire absolute geographical verification. Your schematic is unnecessary. My question was patently simple. And you insist your bathroom is at the rear. I ask this, Ms. Dondragon, because your partner, Mr. Dewey Dondragon, has been rather vigorously nodding his head during Mr. Lumina's narrative, as if he bore direct, unequivocal witness to these proceedings. Which, by your own admission, he did not. No, Your Honor, he did not directly witness the entire chaotic confluence. Impossible. Deanna declared, then, contradicting herself, quickly added, It's not impossible, Your Honor. He was indeed emerging from his aurora shower. He heard Lyra, as he normally does, particularly her distinctive excited vocalizations. He heard me instruct Lyra, remain, he then, instinctively peered through the observation portal the window. That is conveniently situated directly above the driveway. He couldn't physically emerge from the dwelling, as he was in a state of primal undress, so he simply observed from his vantage point. And he can eloquently articulate his observations, Your Honor, if you so desire. Oh, I certainly desire, Ms. Dondragon, Judge Baflumach said, a dangerous glint in her eye. I most certainly desire he can, at the appropriate juncture, indeed articulate his observational perspective. But for now, let us return to your Lumina backyard. You claim Lyra was, for whatever reason, temporarily liberated from your full planetary control, correct? Yes, Your Honor, Deanna admitted, and then. And then, Ms. Dondragon, enlighten us from your personal vantage point. What then transpired? Deanna took a deep breath. Okay, so Mr. Lumina's dog, Sparklebit, commences its customary perambulation up our celestial street. And this is how I became aware of its presence, Your Honor. Even from my sequestered backyard vantage point. It is due to the ear-splitting, singularly irritating vocalizations emitted by that particular glimmerwag, that creature, Your Honor. If it so much as discerns a drifting moon mote, a scampering shadow cat, or a fluttering dream bird, it shrieks, it barks, with a piercing intensity that echoes all the way down the entire luminous street. Every sentient being in our subdivision comprehends its arrival. Everyone anticipates its sonic assault. Ms. Dondragon, Judge Baphomet cut her off with a precise gesture. Do not presume to inform this court of what everyone comprehends or what everyone anticipates. Confine yourself to your own sensory perceptions. You heard Sparklebutt's incessant vocalizations. Vocalizations that continued as it perambulated past your home. Correct, Your Honor, the vocalizations were unrelenting. And so we, Lyra and I, are in our backyard. I am tiding Lyra's lunar meal trays, having just completed her dietary regimen, intending to transport them indoors. Lyra, my dear Lyra, is right beside me, restrained. Mr. Lumina is, at this juncture, lingering at the terminus of my Lumina driveway. And his glimmerwag, Sparklebit, despite ostensibly being secured by a retractable starlight leash, is, by some peculiar orbital deviation, currently located within my driveway, nestled beneath the very sane grumpy bushes. And it is shrieking, barking with singular ferocity at Lyra, my serene Lyra. So, naturally, my dear Lyra, she gravitates in that specific sonic direction. Judge Baphomet's eyes widened slightly. Just a moment, Ms. Dondragon. So, your dog, Lyra, either sees, or rather, hears Sparklebit and subsequently initiates movement in that direction. And at that precise moment, Ms. Dondragon, is it your testimony that Lyra is unequivocally off-leash? He, Mr. Lumina, says no, he's currently shaking his head in negation. You, Ms. Dondragon, are saying yes. Whom, amongst these contradictory celestial observations, am I to believe? Dean aside, Your Honor, I was agreeing with your prior assessment that I, at that critical juncture, did not possess full planetary control. But she was tethered by her leash, Your Honor. Ms. Dondragon, whether the shadow chain was attached or not, if you lacked control, the practical effect is the same, an unrestrained animal. You are attempting to clarify that Sparklebit was, as you put it, on one of those retractable leashes and therefore inherently less controllable. Is that an accurate summary of your attempted clarification? That is accurate, Your Honor, and at that critical moment, Sparklebit, the menace, was physically situated on my driveway. And you, Your Honor, are logically asserting that Lyra, my Lyra, was off-leash during this interaction. Correct, on your driveway. And what I am still asking, Ms. Dondragon, is whether Lyra was on a leash or not. You said she was tethered, yet uncontrollable. He, Mr. Lumina, vehemently denies she was leashed at all. Who is fabricating, Ms. Dondragon? Deanna finally seemed to choose her narrative. Your Honor, Lyra was tethered, but I did not possess absolute control. He, Mr. Lumina, was indeed asserting the direct opposite. He was screaming. Your Honor, screaming about how I couldn't control my animal. I recommend, Ms. Dondragon, that you prudently stow your glowing orb and attend to the testimony with your two auditory portals. The official report states, when Lyra heard Kitty's tags jingling, no, that's not what I heard. Lyra ran off, and Deanna immediately chased after her. This, Ms. Dondragon, is the constable's official transcribed account of your words, uttered to him at the time. Lorenzo Lumina, seizing the opportunity, held up his leaf tablet. Your Honor, Mr. Lumina's report regarding the veterinary diagnosis unequivocally confirms multiple puncture wounds to the lateral abdominal wall, with a penetrating abdominal wall wound present. Do you comprehend, Ms. Dondragon? Deanna nodded slowly. I do. Your Honor, I do. May I, Your Honor, Deanna requested, her voice remarkably steady despite the clear implications of the report, be granted the opportunity to respond? Only if your response possesses an intellectual caliber somewhat higher than the previous assertions of this particular cosmic saga. Continue. Your Honor, you have before you a 5-8 bill alleging severe injuries to Mr. Lumina's glimmerwag, correct? specifically multiple puncture wounds to the lateral abdominal wall with a penetrating abdominal wall wound present. Very well. Now, Your Honor, my unwavering position is this. When I later inspected Mr. Lumina's glimmerwag at their cottage, which I did right after the incident, there were no visible wounds whatsoever. And now, suddenly, days later when he finally presents to a fivette, there are profound, penetrating abdominal wall wounds. Your Honor, I reiterate, my Lyra and Sparklebit never made physical contact. Not at any point. If, and I mean if, those injuries existed on that dog, then it was he, Mr. Lumina, who inflicted them. He did that to his own glimmerwag, absolutely, my Lyra and I. We swear upon the sacred Lumina oaths, he perpetrated those wounds himself. Lumin erupted, sputtering with outrage. I hurt my own daughter's dog, they never. Yes, you absolutely, Miss Hale is so delusional. She has a co-conspirator in her husband with these fantastic delusions. I am utterly appalled, Your Honor, utterly embarrassed for her. Mr. Lumina, Judge Baflumuch said, a new edge to her voice, cutting through the rising tide of recrimination. Ms. Dawndragon, you maintain the same stance. Your shadow hound, you affirm, has been erroneously maligned due to an unearned pit bull prejudice. Is that the essence of your defense? Yes, Your Honor. My Lyra is a 12-year-old, arthritic shadow hound. She suffers from severe hip dysplasia and joint jinxes. I possess glimmer reels of her painful attempts to simply ambulate, let alone sprint like a maniac and inflict penetrating abdominal wounds upon a smaller, nimbler glimmer wag. It is an absurdity. I can present these glimmer reels now, Your Honor. But she did run out and bite my dog, Lumin insisted. She did not, Your Honor. He is lying, and I shall not permit these ludicrous fabrications to sully Lyra's impeccable character. I stand by the unblemished truth, Your Honor, regardless of the outcome of this bizarre tribunal. Deanna finished, her chin defiantly lifted. Judge Baflumuch, however, leaned forward, her expression grave. Ms. Dawndragon, I must confess to finding it exceedingly difficult, indeed, almost beyond the realm of credulity, to conceive of a scenario wherein the parent of any child, particularly a beloved daughter like Aurora, who, by all accounts, radiates an infectious affection, would deliberately inflict multiple, grievous puncture wounds upon her very own glimmerwag. This, to secure a mere few glitter galleons of pecuniary compensation from her neighbor. It is conceptually arduous. Deanna remained unwavering. Your Honor, that is precisely the tragic scenario. Accidents, alas, sometimes necessitate fabrication. The events he described simply did not occur. You are asserting, Ms. Dawndragon, that Mr. Lumina, upon returning to his home with Sparklebit, then armed himself with a miniature ice pick, or perhaps a sharp pixie stiletto, and proceeded to inflict these very wounds himself. Yes, Your Honor, precisely. I cannot speculate on the precise implement. But the act it was committed, and his entire narrative is founded upon a deception to extort money and invoke prejudices against Lyra, my innocent Lyra. Ms. Dawndragon, Judge Baflumuch repeated, her voice laced with thinly veiled disgust. You, the self-professed guardian of the truth, expect me to embrace this utterly fantastical fabrication? You expect this esteemed court, the hall of hilarity and hubris, to swallow whole the ludicrous notion that this man, out of malice or greed, inflicted these grotesque injuries upon his daughter's beloved, ailing glimmerwag? Yes, Deanna insisted, her eyes wide with what she clearly believed to be righteous conviction. Judge Baflumuch slammed her marshmallow gavel down, a soft, sickening thud. Ms. Dawndragon, at the outset of this peculiar odyssey, I was inclined to award Mr. Lumina the full sum of his fivette expenses. However, having had the unique pleasure of enduring your rather imaginative testimony, and having observed the unshakable certainty of your self-aggrandizing delusions, I find myself in a peculiar state of judicial embarrassment for you, And your husband, if his zealous nodding implies adherence to your particular brand of alternative reality, appears to be a willing co-conspirator in this delusional duet. She shook her head slowly, a sorrowful expression on her face. Judgment for the plaintiff, Mr. Lumina, in the amount of 4,000 glitter galleons. Not for the 5 bill, but for the sheer audacity of your delusional testimony. Ms. Dondragon, we are done here. Court is adjourned. And for the love of all that is reasonable, acquire some grasp on basic reality. As Deanna and Lyra, followed by her equally stone-faced partner, were ushered out, Lumen, still shaking, turned to Miss Scribblefast. She flat out lied, "It's a cosmic shame that beings cannot embrace simple honesty." Lyra never, ever touched Sparklebit, you know. If your animal commits a transgression, you should be a Lumina man. Or a Lumina woman enough to confess it and embrace personal responsibility. Deanna, overheard from the hallway, scoffed. He believes that he inflicted those wounds upon his own dog. It's an insult to my character, your honor, an absolute fabrication. That I, Deanna Dondragon, would permit such a monstrosity against Aurora's beloved companion. He, Mr. Lumina, still perambulates past our Lumina cottage to this very day. Some beings, your honor, are merely constructed thus. When confronted with their own undeniable culpability, they orchestrate elaborate tapestries of deceit to evade even the smallest fiscal recompense. Officer Guffaw leaned over to Miss Scribblefast. Sarah, the sheer audacity of Miss Dondragon's assertion that Mr. Lumina would deliberately mutilate his own beloved Glimmerwag for a few measly glitter galleons defies all logical, emotional, and biological precepts. Especially when one considers Mr. Lumina's initial request was merely the simple reimbursement of his 5 bill. Such a suggestion places her in the rather unfortunate category of individuals who reside in a particularly skewed orbital reality. Miss Scribblefast nodded thoughtfully. On the opposing side of this galactic coin, officer, we observe Miss Dondragon. Her narrative, however impassioned, possessed glaring discrepancies. Her inability to fully control her shadow hound. Lyra, as evidenced by Lyra's sprinting down the driveway or gravitating towards the barking, directly contradicts her claims of canine discipline. Furthermore, her official statements to Constable Clipboard painted a picture of Lyra operating far outside the confines of the Lumina driveway, extending even to the public celestial thoroughfare. The notion that such an encounter was anything other than an unfortunate, yet entirely preventable, accident, strains the fabric of cosmic credulity. Animals, officer, however domesticated or beloved, remain creatures of instinct, and that, precisely, is why their sentient guardians bear the responsibility of perpetual control. Accountability, Sarah, Officer Guffaw murmured. It's a rare and precious commodity in this particular dimension. Neither Miss Dondragon nor her partner, Mr. Dewey Dondragon, despite their apparent intellectual faculties though intelligence, as we often lament, rarely equates to wisdom seen capable of embracing such. It is a cautionary tale, indeed. Chapter 4. The Ring of Ruined Romance. The courtroom, having barely shed the lingering scent of dog dander, braced itself for the next spectacle. A flutter of silk and an aura of dramatic heartbreak entered as Miss Elysia Ecliptic, a woman whose every movement seemed designed to be photographed, swept in. Her face, a study in carefully arranged sorrow, hinted at a recent, devastating loss. Facing her, with an expression of bewildered exasperation, was Mr. Orion Orbison, a man who seemed to find the entire proceeding a bewildering invasion of his privacy. Order in this hallowed chamber of hastily shattered hearts. Judge Baphomet announced, her voice now imbued with a dramatic flair suitable for the unfolding romantic tragedy. Be seated, please, unless the spirits of past lovers intend to offer unsolicited spectral testimony. Miss Scribblefast, her face betraying not a flicker of surprise at the ever-escalating theatricality, announced, Case number 1113, Ecliptic versus Orbison. Thank you, Your Honor. You are most welcome, Ms. Scribblefast, Judge Baflamuch replied, fixing Elysia with an almost theatrical glare. Ms. Ecliptic, if my holographic complaint reader has accurately processed the digital grievances, you, dear madam, first encountered the defendant, Mr. Orbison, via the dubious channels of the Celestial Connection Collective, an online cosmic dating service, correct? Correct, Your Honor, Elysia responded, her voice a delicate, shimmering sigh. It was on the 14th of March of the previous solar cycle, a day I shall forever engrave upon the tablets of my soul. The 14th of March, and on what precise orbital trajectory did your physical forms first intersect, the inaugural corporeal rendezvous? The very same day, Your Honor, a whirlwind of nascent romance. Indeed, and on what auspicious celestial alignment did you, Ms. Ecliptic, see fit to present Mr. Orbison with what I understand to be a rather financially significant token of your burgeoning affection? Elysia hesitated, then said, in the subsequent solar cycle, Your Honor, April. April, you say, and this financially significant token took the form of a piece of exquisite celestial ornamentation. Yes, Your Honor, I bestowed upon him a magnificent cosmic constellation ring. Do you, by chance, recall the exact astronomical valuation of this cosmic constellation ring? Its appraisal value, Your Honor, was a breathtaking 1,200 starlight shards, though I, in my boundless affection, secured it for a mere 700 starlight shards. Judge Baflamuch raised an eyebrow. 700 starlight shards, a sum not inconsequential for an individual you had known in the physical realm for precisely 4 weeks. A testament to either precipitous passion or perhaps a fleeting form of pecuniary insanity. And then, in the very next solar cycle, May, you further escalated this pattern of lavish gift-giving. Correct. I did, Your Honor. My heart simply soared. And what celestial trinket did you procure for Mr. Orbison on this occasion? A dazzling gold meteorite bracelet, Your Honor, a cascade of pure cosmic allure, and its corresponding astronomical valuation. I believe that particular piece of celestial craftsmanship approached 900 starlight shards, Your Honor, just shy of that figure. Judge Baflamuch paused, leaning back, allowing the sheer volume of Elysia's romantic expenditures to hang in the air like an expensive nebula. Then, her gaze shifting to Orion, she inquired, Mr. Orbison, I implore you, activate your powers of recollection. During these same initial lunar cycles of March or April, what precisely did you, Mr. Orbison, bestow upon Ms. Ecliptic? Orion Orbison, a man of quiet demeanor who looked as though he'd rather be polishing his telescope than in court, spoke in a low, gravelly voice. I escorted her to Celestial Tiffany's, Your Honor, after approximately 3 weeks of our fledgling courtship. There, I acquired for her a silver nova bracelet. And this silver nova bracelet, Mr. Orbison, did it possess any distinctive planetary insignia? It featured a small, shimmering silver with a blue Tiffany star heart, Your Honor. And the specific fiscal burden of this Tiffany star heart trinket, Mr. Orbison. I don't precisely recall the exact figure, Your Honor. However, I have retrieved a transaction log, if Your Honor requires precise calibration. Orion produced a glowing, data-scrolling device from his pocket. Good, Mr. Orbison. Such preparedness is laudable. Stow it for a moment. But now, as to other significant acquisitions, what further gifts, if any, did you bestow upon Ms. Ecliptic during these whirlwind months of April or May? In the lunar cycle of May, Your Honor, I presented her with a birthday nebula, an exquisitely crafted diamond star ring. Elysia, a dramatic sigh escaping her, added, He is referring, Your Honor, to the engagement constellation. She then subtly put a finger to her lips, as if silencing a well-rehearsed secret. Judge Baflamuch merely raised an eyebrow. Indeed. So, Ms. Ecliptic, you purchased for Mr. Orbison a cosmic constellation ring and a gold meteorite bracelet, and he, in return, presented you with a silver Nova bracelet from Celestial Tiffany's, followed by a birthday nebula, also known as a diamond star ring, also known as an engagement constellation. Your personal birthday, Ms. Ecliptic, is on what date? The 4th of June, Your Honor. And this rather multifaceted diamond star ring, Mr. Orbison. When precisely did its purchase materialize? I believe it was in the concluding solar cycles of May, Your Honor. I, too, possess the precise acquisition dates, if Your Honor would prefer absolute temporal veracity. Orion again offered his data-scrolling device. Indulge me, Mr. Orbison. Provide the specific cosmic chronometry of these significant acquisitions. There were two separate transactions, Your Honor, one on May 10th, the other on May 25th. And the nature of the May 10th transaction, Mr. Orbison. That, Your Honor, constituted a preliminary deposit, roughly half the total cost of the ring, with the understanding that I would return to finalize the acquisition. This all transpired within the Celestial Jewelers Boutique, conveniently located beneath Ms. Ecliptic's professional constellation of commerce. So Ms. Ecliptic operates within a building beneath which is situated this Celestial Jewelers Boutique. Correct, Your Honor. And this establishment, Celestial Jewelers, was presumably already well acquainted with you, Mr. Orbison, given your prior generous expenditures on Ms. Ecliptic's behalf. Yes, Your Honor, Master Jeweler Perry Prism, the proprietor, is a personal acquaintance. Master Jeweler Perry Prism, your personal acquaintance, Judge Baflumuch mused. And the full astronomical valuation of this diamond star ring. 11,500 starlight shards, Your Honor. 11,500 starlight shards, Judge Baflumuch repeated, her voice hushed with awe. And this impressive piece of stellar craftsmanship where, pray tell, does it currently reside? Floating in some nebula of misplaced affections. Orion sighed, I am entirely uncertain, Your Honor. I assume it remains within the physical possession of Ms. Ecliptic. Indeed, in any cosmic event, Mr. Orbison, there arrived a fateful moment when the celestial alignment of your relationship dissolved. Your claim asserts that you initiated this separation with rather abrupt finality, correct? Yes, Your Honor, with regrettable, yet necessary, expedition. You dispatched a succinct text message, then you orchestrated a covert rendezvous in a comet car park, and there. You returned to Ms. Ecliptic all the physical ephemera she had left at your celestial dwelling, including, most pertinently, the two extravagant tokens of affection she had bestowed upon you. Her cosmic constellation ring and her gold meteorite bracelet, correct? Elysia, ever the dramaturge, interrupted with a gasp, Your Honor. I did not visually perceive those particular celestial ornaments within the returning satchel of belongings, I assure you. Orion, however, remained calm. They were in the satchel, Your Honor, carefully enclosed in smaller, protective comet catcher bags, and sealed, precisely so they would not inadvertently aggress the confines of the main satchel. Judge Baflumuch, however, was in no mood for such niceties. Just a moment, Ms. Ecliptic. I hear you, but I am asking Mr. Orbison. Mr. Orbison, you returned the two gifts she had given you. Is that what you claim? Yes, Your Honor. I meticulously placed them in the designated return satchel. Ms. Ecliptic, did you conscientiously examine the contents of this return satchel? Yes, Your Honor, I did, with the meticulous scrutiny of a forensic astrophysicist. And I can solemnly declare they were conspicuously absent. Not present in the satchel, nor, I might add, are they presently residing within the hallowed confines of my humble abode. Judge Baflumuch regarded Orion Orbison, who had offered a small, knowing nod during Elysia's lament. Mr. Orbison, you silently concur with Ms. Ecliptic's protestations of non-receipt. Or perhaps you tacitly attest to the fact of her loss. Speak. Orion took a deep breath. Your Honor, I explicitly placed them in the satchel. They were wrapped. I handed her the bag. I believe her assertion of their subsequent absence from her possession is tangential to the fact of my diligent return. Judge Baflumach eyed them both for a long moment, a cosmic pause. Then, with a definitive air, she declared, I find Mr. Orbison's testimony on this point credible. I believe he indeed returned those two particular tokens of affection that you, Ms. Ecliptic, had purchased for him. Elysia slumped, as if a star had gone out inside her. Now, Judge Baflumach continued, turning back to the scroll of digital complaints. It is further alleged that during the ephemeral lifespan of your romantic constellation prior to its dissolution, you, Ms. Ecliptic, transmitted to Mr. Orbison a sum of 2,100 starlight shards. This, you claim, constituted your half-share of travel expenses for two meticulously planned romantic celestial excursions, correct? Correct. Your Honor ventures that, alas, never materialized into joyous reality. On what precise calendar month, day, and year did this significant monetary transfer occur? Elysia fumbled through her own voluminous complaint scrolls. Your Honor, I possess the precise data regarding the acquisition of the Celestial Tiffany's bracelet. Excellent, Ms. Ecliptic. We shall address the trinket from Celestial Tiffany's momentarily. But first, the precise fiscal transfers, Mr. Orbison, on the 16th of June, 2021. Did Ms. Ecliptic transfer a sum of 1,000 starlight shards into your personal orbital bank account? Yes, Your Honor. She remitted the funds via the Cosmic Venmo application. I retain records of this 1,000 starlight shard transfer. And on the 11th of June, I see an entry for an Amazon Music upgrade for 400 starlight shards. And an abbreviation of NC Angem, and it mentions the Carolyn trip. Mr. Orbison, this is simply too much tangential information. I do not wade into the murky celestial currents of commingled funds between individuals engaged in romantic entanglements unless the provenance is as clear as a supernova's burst. This particular entry is utterly amorphous. However, this explicit entry, transfer date, Vegas baby, 1,000 starlight shards, now that I can interpret with clarity. A precise, unequivocal fiscal transfer period, end of discussion. And for the record, the Celestial Tiffany's bracelet had a precise fiscal valuation of 300 starlight shards, correct. So, in effect, a charming trinket, as opposed to a planetary treasure. But the diamond star ring that he acquired for you, valued at 11,500 starlight shards. That, Ms. Ecliptic, is emphatically not a trinket. Judge Baflumach then addressed Mr. Orbison. Mr. Orbison, on what precise celestial alignment did you formally dissolve your romantic constellation with Ms. Ecliptic? The 30th of July, Your Honor. The 30th of July, and on the 16th of June, a little over a month prior, Ms. Ecliptic had transferred 1,000 starlight shards to you, clearly marked for a Vegas baby celestial excursion. This, I assume, was intended for a future voyage. Correct, Your Honor. We had meticulously planned a romantic getaway to the star-spangled spaceways of Vegas for the upcoming Labor Day weekend. However, as you accurately note, I initiated the dissolution of our constellation prior to that anticipated rendezvous. I therefore canceled all subsequent plans, including that particular trip. So you broke up on July 30th. The trip was planned for Labor Day weekend. This means, Mr. Orbison, you had the entirety of August, and then some, prior to the scheduled departure. And most reputable cosmic travel agencies offer a 30-day cancellation grace period. What became of the 1,000 starlight shards remitted for this specific voyage? Orion looked slightly uncomfortable. The 1,000 starlight shards, Your Honor, simply constituted her half-share of the anticipated travel expenses for that trip. The full amount was never disbursed to the travel agents. It merely remained within my personal orbital account. Judge Baflumach looked at him, then back at Elysia. An honest answer, Mr. Orbison, indeed, a refreshing rarity in this particular dimension. Now, Ms. Ecliptic, let us return to the 11,500 starlight shard diamond star ring that Mr. Orbison bestowed upon you. Where, precisely, is it now? Elysia, for the first time, looked genuinely uneasy. She clasped her hands, fidgeting. I'm truly not certain, Your Honor. I believe it might be potentially residing somewhere within the vast, glittering expanse of Lake Minnetrunk. I confess, I consumed an unfortunate quantity of Starbrew oil and regrettably misplaced it. Judge Vaflamuch's gaze was unyielding, misecliptic. That is, frankly, too unfortunate. For if that is indeed the true celestial trajectory of that 11,500 starlight shard ring, then you, dear madam, are entirely disentitled to your 1,000 starlight shard reimbursement. Do you comprehend that fundamental principle of cosmic quid pro quo? Elysia attempted to interject. Even though, Your Honor, period, even though. No even though, Ms. Ecliptic, no period, no cosmic qualifiers. Mr. Orbison, this rather naive individual, disbursed a staggering 11,500 starlight shards for a particular piece of stellar adornment, a ring which I am quite certain remains firmly within your clandestine possession. And it is my sworn duty, as the purveyor of truth in this comedic theater, to ensure its rightful return to him, and if you refuse or claim fictitious cosmic memory loss, then you shall receive precisely 0 further compensation. Do you comprehend this irrefutable cosmic truth? I comprehend, Your Honor. Alicia's voice was barely a whisper. Do you, Ms. Ecliptic, possess any desire, however faint, to rectify this situation by returning the diamond star ring to Mr. Orbison? I don't possess it, Your Honor, Elysia reiterated, still clinging to her narrative of alcoholic oblivion. I do not believe you, Ms. Ecliptic, Judge Baflamuch stated, her voice as cold and hard as a chunk of asteroid. I find your narrative utterly lacking in luminosity. An individual such as yourself, who so ardently cherishes celestial adornments, who, upon the very first visual recognition of an individual, showers them with expensive rings and bracelets, knows, with absolute, stellar certainty, the precise planetary coordinates of an 11,500 starlight shard ring. It defies the very laws of material attachment. He, Mr. Orbison, Judge Baflamuch gestured to Orion, who looked increasingly bewildered. He knows exactly where that 11,500 starlight shard ring resides. Judge Baflamuch then shifted focus. Mr. Orbison, the pivotal query then becomes, on what precise solar cycle did you bestow this magnificent diamond star ring upon Ms. Ecliptic? It was the 29th of May, Your Honor. And how does your memory retain such temporal precision? I possess holographic image records, Your Honor, and detailed celestial diary entries. We meticulously chronicled the event with celebratory pictorials. Orion produced his data scrolling device again. I would, most certainly, desire to scrutinize these pictorial chronicles, Judge Baflamuch demanded. Please illuminate your glowing orb with these images. This, I assume, was the very day you chose to celebrate your own cosmic birthday, Ms. Ecliptic, perhaps with your sister as a witness. That, Your Honor, was merely a coincidental celebration of my earthly birthday, orchestrated with my dear sister, Elysia began, still deflecting. My sister, indeed, can attest to the fact that we chose May 28th, the preceding day, to observe my annual rotation around the sun. I do not care about your sister's testimony, Ms. Ecliptic. Judge Baflamuch cut her off, her patience visibly thinning. My unwavering conviction remains. I do not believe you are genuinely bereft of this ring. Do you finally grasp the gravity of this judicial assessment? I comprehend your assessment, Your Honor, Elysia murmured, her face pale. I find your continued obfuscation highly irritating. You do possess that ring. Do you wish to present to this court the holographic likeness of this 11,500 starlight shard ring? I believe I possess that as well, Your Honor, Elysia reluctantly admitted, her leaf tablet flickering. Just a moment, Judge Baflamuch cautioned, taking the device from Elysia. This, I note, Ms. Ecliptic, is a document originating from your personal acquaintance, Master Jeweler Perry Prism, and prominently inscribed upon this fiscal document are the unequivocal words, engagement ring. So, whilst you might wish to imbue it with multifunctional significance, by also labeling it a birthday nebula, the undeniable textual evidence, authored by your own friend, denotes its primary purpose, an engagement ring. And if he, Mr. Orbison, choose to double its celebratory function, then he is, in my esteemed opinion, a most shrewd celestial partner. She then peered at Elysia, a knowing gleam in her eye. Listen to me, Ms. Ecliptic. Much like I found your prior claims of ignorance regarding the ring's whereabouts entirely unbelievable, I possess a well-established judicial maxim, once a prevaricator, always a prevaricator, until stellar evidence proves otherwise. This was unequivocally an engagement ring, and by the accepted tenets of cosmic propriety, you should have facilitated its immediate return. Elysia, finding a last spark of defiant resolve, retorted, but, Your Honor, when Mr. Orbison initiated the dissolution of our constellation, he explicitly conveyed, via encrypted celestial message, that I could retain the ring. I have his digital missives. They are undeniable. He did not utter such cosmic magnanimity, Your Honor, Orion protested, clearly agitated. Very well, Ms. Ecliptic, Judge Baflamuch responded, her tone dangerously calm. If you possess an encrypted celestial message from Mr. Orbison, unequivocally granting you perpetual ownership of an 11,500 Starlight Shard engagement ring, I shall, with profound judicial curiosity, examine it. However, the indisputable fact remains, your personal acquaintance, Master Jeweler Perry Prism, in his official capacity, explicitly designated this celestial artifact as an engagement ring. And if it is an engagement ring, Ms. Ecliptic, it unequivocally belongs back in the orbital possession of Mr. Orbison. She then turned to Orion. What I can confirm, Mr. Orbison, is that your own celestial missives, exchanged with Ms. Ecliptic following the dissolution, betray a certain confusion on your part regarding your precise legal rights. You, Mr. Orbison, explicitly conceded in one message, penned on the 4th of August, that you possessed no legal rights to demand the ring back from her. Am I misinterpreting this communication, Mr. Orbison? Orion flushed. I realize now, Your Honor, that I was operating under a grievous misapprehension of my legal entitlements. A moment of profound galactic ignorance, I assure you. Indeed, Mr. Orbison, for, indeed, you do possess unequivocal legal entitlements. For an engagement ring, Mr. Orbison, is unequivocally a conditional gift, bestowed in eager contemplation of the impending matrimonial constellation. And if that anticipated matrimonial constellation never materializes, if the implicit contractual agreement of marriage is fractured, then irrespective of who initiated the dissolution, or under what emotional duress, in my esteemed legal cosmos, and indeed, within numerous celestial jurisdictions, the entire contractual agreement is rendered null and void. The condition precedent to the gift's permanent transfer is unfulfilled. You, Mr. Orbison, are therefore entirely entitled to reclaim your property. She leaned towards Elysia, her voice sharp. Now, should you have successfully navigated the matrimonial constellation, should you have lawfully entered into the sacred bonds of marriage and subsequently sought a dissolution, then, indeed, the condition precedent would have been met. You would have been entitled to retain the ring. But to accept a proposal, to receive an engagement ring, and then to utterly fail to fulfill the implied covenant of marriage, whilst also claiming drunken, nebulous amnesia regarding its location, that, Ms. Ecliptic, is simply an unacceptable stratagem. Elysia tried one last protest, but it was also a birthday gift, Your Honor. Ms. Ecliptic, your repeated insistence on the also serves no purpose. Do you comprehend what I have elucidated? Yes, Your Honor. that also is entirely inconsequential. If Mr. Orbison, in his sagacious financial planning, chose to imbue one singular gift with a dual celebratory purpose, then that is merely a testament to his practical resourcefulness. It remains, fundamentally, an engagement ring. As confirmed by your own personal acquaintance, Master Jeweler Perry Prism. Judge Baflamutch pounded her marshmallow gavel. Ms. Ecliptic, your claim for the 1,000 starlight shards is dismissed. Furthermore, this court's maximum jurisdictional limit for direct monetary restitution is 10,000 starlight shards. Your protracted lamentations concerning your lost ring are entirely, utterly unbelievable. I cannot, by any means, conjure a diamond star ring of such monumental value from the ethereal recesses of a supposed Lake Minnetrunk. You are, in my considered judicial opinion, engaged in deliberate prevarication. Judgment for the defendant, Mr. Orbison, on his counterclaim, in the amount of 10,000 starlight shards, representing the maximum permissible jurisdictional award. We are finished. Court is adjourned, and may both of you seek more astronomically sound romantic relationships in the future. As Alicia Ecliptic stumbled out, tears now dramatically welling in her eyes, Orion Orbison merely blinked, the unexpected turn of events seemingly as profound as a newly discovered black hole. She merely desired pecuniary gain. Your Honor, Orion murmured to Officer Guffaw as he passed. She manipulated me with a web of spurious affection, all to secure my substantial assets. The judge, in her sagacious insight, correctly discerned the predatory nature of her initial lavish gifting strategy. Alicia, pausing just outside the Dreamwood doors, her voice trembling with indignation, overheard this. I was exploited, utterly taken advantage of. When he, the heartless Orion, dissolved our constellation, he explicitly granted me ownership of that ring. I truly consumed a prodigious quantity of Starbrew ale, officer, and regrettably lost it somewhere in the cosmic depths of Lake Minnetrunk. This was after August 4th, when he had magnanimously conceded its ownership. He merely orchestrated a theatrical charade for the cameras, dancing on Starlight TikTok, gleefully broadcasting the demise of yet another romantic entanglement, whilst I, Deligia, remained gutted and utterly devastated. And now he's back on the Celestial Connection Collective. It makes absolutely no cosmic sense. Officer Guffaw, witnessing the raw emotion, shook his head. You know, Sarah, the perennial question of the engagement ring. Jurisdictional disparities aside, Judge Baflamutch has maintained a singular consistency for what seems like 26 eons. An engagement ring, by cosmic law, is a conditional gift. Its permanence hinges upon the successful conclusion of the marital contract. Breach that contract by whatever celestial whim, and the giver retains absolute right of reclamation. Post-marriage, the gift is cemented. Prior to it, merely provisional. Ms. Ecliptic's frantic and utterly transparent pivot to birthday gift was merely a desperate maneuver, an attempt to bypass this undeniable truth. And her claim of drunken, nebulous amnesia, utterly transparent, a cosmic sieve, Judge Baflamutch's astute perception of human chicanery, as ever, prevails. Miss Scribblefast, for once, allowed herself a small, knowing chuckle. The right cosmic outcome, officer, a resounding affirmation of common sense. Chapter 5, The Mercedes Mystery and the Disabled Driver's Dilemma. The echoing silence following the emotional whirlwind of Alicia Ecliptic and Orion Orbison was short-lived. The court's doors next admitted a pair whose familial connection was clear, yet whose expressions were starkly contrasting. Miss Coralie Compass, a woman whose every line of communication seemed burdened by chronic exasperation, marched in with determined steps, accompanied by her perpetually bewildered partner, Bartholomew Beacon. Trailing behind them, shuffling with an air of unlearned resignation, was Mr. Tiberius Tracer, Bartholomew's cousin, whose general demeanor suggested he was always bracing for a particularly unwelcome, if familiar, storm. Order in this court of convoluted vehicular vending. Judge Belinda Baflamuch's voice resonated through the hall, infused with an almost preemptive weariness. All parties, please step forward. And if you harbor any arcane, multi-layered conspiracy theories regarding distant relatives, I suggest you confine them strictly to your private telepathic transmissions. They have no place here. Ms. Scribblefast, her fingers already flying over the stenotype machine in anticipation of the upcoming narrative complexities, announced case number 1124, Compass versus Tracer. Thank you, Your Honor. You are most welcome, Ms. Scribblefast, Judge Baflamuch replied, her gaze fixing on Coralie, Ms. Compass, if my stellar archives are accurate, this gentleman, Mr. Bartholomew Beacon, is your long-suffering partner, with whom you have cohabitated for approximately 12 solar cycles, according to your rather comprehensive complaint. And Mr. Tracer, this is his cousin, presumably linked by ties of dubious consanguinity. Is this introductory familial constellation accurately aligned? Yes, Your Honor, Coralie affirmed, her voice crisp with an edge of lingering indignation. My Bartholomew and his cousin, Tiberius. She pronounced cousin as if it were a rare and particularly noxious species of fungus. Now, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch continued, consulting her data slate. Some indeterminate number of solar cycles ago, as your complaint conspicuously omits a precise temporal reference, you purchased a particularly magnificent celestial conveyance, a motor carriage, from Mr. Tracer. Is that, broadly speaking, accurate? Accurate, Your Honor. It was in the early part of 2016, January, specifically. January of 2016, and the nature of this opulent acquisition, Ms. Compass. A Mercedes Comet of the 2000 vintage, Your Honor, a Model S for 30, a truly elegant conveyance. Coralie described it with a lingering sense of past pride, tinged now with present resentment. Indeed, and the agreed-upon fiscal exchange for this celestial carriage, Ms. Compass. 6,000 starlight shards, Your Honor, a sum meticulously calculated and duly delivered. Judge Baflamuch turned to Tiberius Tracer, whose expression hardened. Mr. Tracer, do you dispute this stated valuation and precise temporal exchange? Yes, Your Honor, I do, Tiberius replied, his voice a low rumble. What, precisely, do you dispute, Mr. Tracer? My recollection, Your Honor, is that the agreed-upon price was a more modest 5,000 starlight shards, if she now suddenly recalls 6. She is not suddenly recalling, Mr. Tracer. She has formally documented her claim, Ms. Compass. Do you possess irrefutable, extraterrestrial proof of this 6,000 starlight shard exchange? Coralie straightened, her eyes flashing. Your Honor, I have a trusted companion who bore direct witness to my physical presentation of the currency to Mr. Tracer, and furthermore, I retain meticulous digital logs documenting the ongoing fiscal transactions I was undertaking directly to him, even 3 solar cycles subsequent to the acquisition, whilst he was, shall we say, temporarily inconvenienced by an interstellar incarceration program. Bartholomew Beacon, her partner, cleared his throat. She also faithfully processed his external obligations, Your Honor, facilitating financial conduits while he was offline. Judge Baflamuch simply fixed Coralie with an unblinking gaze. Ms. Compass, your contention seems to revolve around the monies he then remitted to you. What I do not, at this juncture, see factored into your meticulously compiled accountancy is a crucial detail, the 9 full lunar cycles during which you, and you alone, enjoyed unimpeded command of this Mercedes Comet. Coralie flustered, but Your Honor, during a significant portion of that period, the celestial carriage was rendered immobile. It was not fully operational. I do not care, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch said, with a dismissive wave of her hand, whether the vehicle experienced mechanical infirmities or whether you suffered temporary physical incapacitation, the demonstrable fact remains. The Mercedes Comet resided firmly within your sphere of control and operational domain. Its accessibility, regardless of transient dysfunction, remained yours alone. Coralie swallowed, looking genuinely frustrated. Ms. Kempis, Judge Baflamuch continued, consulting her records. Based on a standardized planetary palanquin appraisal estimate for a pre-owned 90,000-mile Mercedes Comet, the private party exchange value, today, ranges between 3,000 and 4,800 starlight shards, today's figures, which, when juxtaposed with its 2016 acquisition, suggests 6,000 starlight shards was, indeed, a not unreasonable price. This inherent depreciation, Ms. Kempis, serves to highlight the singular efficacy of prompt legal redress, rather than awaiting the stately progression of 5 solar cycles. Your core issue, Ms. Kempis, as I see it, is rooted in the chronology. According to your testimony, you operated this Mercedes Comet from January 2016 until you, unfortunately, found yourself entangled in a particularly uninvited vehicular interaction. In what specific month and year did this regrettable incident occur? October of 2016, Your Honor. It was during that period that I first discovered the inconvenient truth about the Celestial Carriage's original registration. Coralie's voice sharpened, hinting at a new, darker revelation. Refrain from dramatic prefaces, Ms. Kempis. Stick to the unadorned facts. So, you operated the vehicle from January through October of 2016. Your vehicular mishap transpired in October, correct? Correct, Your Honor. However, I must interject. For a cumulative period of 4 lunar cycles within that time frame, the celestial carriage was entirely inoperable, as I previously attested. I maintain my previous position, Ms. Kempis, Judge Baflamuch stated, her voice utterly unwavering. Your personal operational challenges or mechanical exigencies are not, at this moment, germane. The vehicle remained under your custodianship. Therefore, if my cosmic arithmetic is correct, you possessed and operated this Mercedes Comet for, let us compute, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. What specific day in October did the unfortunate incident transpire? October 12th, Your Honor, a day of cosmic reckoning for my lumbar region. So, approximately 9 lunar cycles of direct custodianship and operational availability. And the incident, by your own assertion, was unequivocally not your fault, correct? Absolutely not, Your Honor. I was merely traversing the celestial thoroughfare with serene grace when an aberrant comet, in the guise of another motor carriage, inexplicably slammed into my rear, a wholly unprovoked impact. And subsequent to this unprovoked impact, a substantial interstellar insurance payout was remitted, correct? Correct, Your Honor. And to whom, precisely, did this pecuniary interstellar bomb gravitate? To the dealership, Your Honor, for there existed a pre-existing note of encumbrance upon the celestial carriage. A note of encumbrance, you say, and the precise fiscal burden of this note. Coralie squinted at a piece of paper, 58, 63, 77 starlight shards, Your Honor, the remnants of a prior, more complex galactic acquisition. Now, Ms. Kempis, from this traumatic unprovoked impact, did you personally acquire any monetary compensation? For injuries, Your Honor, yes. And the precise fiscal remuneration for these injuries? 19,000 starlight shards, Your Honor, a paltry sum, considering the agony. And the specific constellations of injury you purportedly sustained, Ms. Kempis. My knee was grievously traumatized, Your Honor, a vertebrae fractured. My neck sustained profound celestial whiplash, and my wrist, my delicate wrist, a distressing sprain. Prior to this unfortunate vehicular encounter, Ms. Kempis, what was the nature of your primary vocational engagement? I have been navigating the nebulous realm of planetary disability for the past 8 solar cycles, Your Honor. And the genesis of this particular planetary disability, Ms. Kempis, the underlying constellations of infirmity. I became profoundly unwell, Your Honor. hospitalized for 3 arduous lunar cycles, underwent a rib resection and a partial lung ablation, and subsequently endured extensive reconstructive efforts upon my dorsal region. Your dorsal region, Ms. Compass, what were the underlying complexities? I suffer from osteoarthritis, Your Honor, degenerative disc disease, and spinal stenosis. I've even undergone a spinal implant insertion procedure. My back, Your Honor, is a veritable galactic tapestry of chronic pain. And following this regrettable vehicular incident on October 12th, Ms. Compass, were you immediately admitted to a Celestial Convalescence Ward hospital? No, we were conveyed to the emergency realm and then released, Your Honor. So the unequivocal answer is no. You were not hospitalized on October 12th or the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, or the 16th. No, Your Honor, none of those dates. Therefore, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch concluded, her voice gaining momentum, the specific constellation of injuries you ostensibly sustained from this unprovoked impact were, by all demonstrable metrics, insufficiently severe to warrant hospitalization. And yet, you gratefully accepted 19,000 starlight shards as monetary recompense for these ostensibly minor physical indignities. Is that accurate? Yes, Your Honor, Coralie conceded, her voice barely audible. Judge Baflamuch turned to Tiberius. Mr. Tracer, the complainant here, Ms. Compass, subsequently engaged in a period of interstellar incarceration, as she delicately put it. And during this period, you, Mr. Tracer, apparently commenced remitting payments to her towards the money she purportedly infused into this Mercedes Comet, all whilst acknowledging that a significant prior note of encumbrance on the vehicle had been entirely and conveniently absorbed by an insurance payout. And she, Ms. Compass, enjoyed unfettered use of this Mercedes Comet for a full 9 lunar cycles, a privilege that, in this realm, is unequivocally not gratis. Coralie tried to interject again, but, Your Honor, I also diligently defrayed all of their accumulated traffic infraction notices when I first registered the vehicle. 650 starlight shards worth of their bureaucratic neglect. Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch stated, with a definitive air of disinterest, I am entirely unmoved by your zealous acts of civic rectitude. They are not germane to this particular calculus. Your claim, Ms. Compass, is 5 solar cycles old ordinarily. Such an egregious delay would prompt an immediate judicial adios to all involved parties. However, as an exercise in my rarely exhibited magnanimity, I shall attempt to bring this protracted squabble to a swift and conclusive resolution. What you are ultimately seeking, Ms. Compass, is the remaining balance of this 6,000 starlight shard original investment. You claim, by your arithmetic, that after Mr. Tracer's sporadic remunerations, a balance of 2,700, or perhaps 2,750 starlight shards remains outstanding. Is that accurate? 2,750, Your Honor, precisely. What I do not observe within your meticulous calculations, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch continued, her voice gaining an unstoppable momentum, is any equitable accounting for the 9 full lunar cycles during which you, and you alone, operated this Mercedes Comet, even if we were to assign a ludicrously minimal monthly rental value to such a sophisticated celestial conveyance, say, a mere 300 starlight shards per month, 9 times 300, Ms. Compass, equates to 2,700 starlight shards. Do you grasp the implications of this simple arithmetic? Coralie's eyes widened. This means, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamuch declared, her voice now ringing with triumphant, unassailable logic, that you, dear madam, were afforded the rather extraordinary privilege of operating a Mercedes Comet for the astronomical price of absolutely nothing. Not only that, but you also reap the full intrinsic value of the vehicle, having received substantial payments from Mr. Tracer. And then, as the cherry on top of this cosmic confectionery, you received an astounding 19,000 starlight shards for ostensibly minor, non-hospitalization-worthy injuries resulting from a regrettable, if advantageous, vehicular interaction. That, Ms. Compass, to my ears, sounds unequivocally, astronomically unreasonable. Coralie burst out, but it was inoperable for a significant portion of that time. Your Honor, my cosmic journey was disrupted. I maintain my previous stance, Ms. Compass, Judge Baflamage boomed. Such vexing intricacies, had they been truly significant, would have necessitated prompt legal redress, rather than awaiting the deliberate accumulation of half a decade. I am entirely ignorant as to whether the vehicle itself was ailing, or if you were incapacitated. What I do know, with unwavering certainty, is that one simply cannot, in this current economic climate, lease a Mercedes Comet for less than 300 starlight shards per month you possessed, and by definition utilized, that vehicle for 9 lunar cycles. That amounts to 2,700 starlight shards. Ergo, Mr. Tracer owes you precisely nothing. She paused, allowing the weight of her calculations to settle upon Coralie. Indeed, Ms. Compass, in the grand cosmic scheme of this particular transaction, you, by my calculations, have profited. You garnered over 3,000 starlight shards in total value from the car itself between the initial agreement and Mr. Tracer's subsequent, inexplicably generous payments, plus a cool 19,000 starlight shards from an incident that didn't even merit a single night's stay in a celestial convalescence ward, I dare say. Ms. Compass, your coffers have been rather amply replenished. I deem our discussion on this matter concluded. Coralie, defeated, muttered, I dispersed over 4,000 starlight shards to him. Judge Baflamage, however, cut her off. Ms. Compass, you possess no discernible counterclaim. And if you indeed generously disbursed over 4,000 starlight shards to Mr. Tracer, then I can only conclude, Mr. Tracer, that you are, contrary to initial appearances, an uncommonly benevolent individual. What Ms. Compass has conspicuously neglected to factor into her intricate fiscal narrative is the rather significant detail that she, for a full 9 lunar cycles, commanded the privilege of a Mercedes Comet, all at someone else's pecuniary expense. Judge Baflamage slammed her marshmallow gavel with triumphant finality. We are unequivocally concluded here. Court is adjourned. And perhaps, Ms. Compass, consider investing in some common sense before initiating your next celestial acquisition. As Coralie Compass and Bartholomew Beacon trudged out, their defeat palpable, Tiberius Tracer simply looked bewildered, then, with a shake of his head, offered a small shrug. You know, it all seems remarkably accurate to me. Coralie, her voice trembling with indignation, responded, I do not believe it was equitable. I meticulously defrayed all their accumulated bureaucratic burdens, and I truly believed I was enacting a benevolent act by even paying what I did. They deliberately orchestrated a scenario. Your Honor, they sold me a vehicle which, by all metrics, they did not entirely own. It's a vast celestial conspiracy, I tell you. Tiberius Tracer merely rolled his eyes at the comment. Oh, no, Your Honor, she merely concocted this elaborate conspiracy theory about my cousin Bartholomew and I, suggesting we were somehow in arcane collusion to defraud her. I have no notion, to be entirely honest, where such fantastical fabrications originate. Bartholomew Beacon, equally exasperated, muttered, He's simply hurling cosmic stones. They did this. They intentionally sold me a car they didn't own. And they started it. It's entirely her own doing. I have no comprehension as to why she persists in inflicting such emotional and fiscal duress upon us. Tiberius, shaking his head, sighed, One thing is now irrevocably certain. I shall never again lend money to or acquire anything of significant fiscal value from my familial relations. Officer Gaffa, witnessing the departure of this latest trio of plaintiffs, turned to Ms. Scribblefast. Sarah, one might postulate that Ms. Compass, in the grand calculus of cosmic events, made out rather spectacularly. The vehicular mishap, whilst undoubtedly an unpleasant interaction, did not, by her own admission, necessitate even a single overnight stay in a celestial convalescence ward, yet she managed to secure 19,000 starlight shards for pain and suffering from an unsuspecting interstellar insurance provider. Mr. Tracer, despite his relative innocence, generously remitted a significant sum. She claimed over 4,000. He admits to slightly less, purely out of familial obligation. This brings her cumulative total, Sarah, to a staggering 23,000 starlight shards. And let us not forget the small, yet significant, detail that she operated an opulent Mercedes Comet for 9 entire lunar cycles entirely free of charge. It truly struck me as unconscionable. Her refusal to acknowledge this undeniable period of free utilization. Miss Scribblefast, scribbling furiously to keep up with the cascading wisdom, nodded in agreement. Indeed, officer, this particular case also serves to buttress an invaluable judicial adage, which we, in our hallowed profession, constantly endeavor to propagate. If one wishes to initiate legal action, one must, with utmost expediency, pursue it timely. There exists, officer, a universally recognized imperative to avoid allowing a dispute to languish for half a decade before finally seeking judicial arbitration. Procrastination, in the legal realm, is rarely a harbinger of optimal outcomes. Precisely, Sarah. Now, on to the final theatrical flourish for today's session. Chapter 6. The Kennel Kerfuffle and the Canine Custody Crisis. The Hall of Hilarity and Hubris seemed to take a collective, weary breath before admitting the last, and arguably most complex, cast of characters for the day. A veritable caravan of carriers, leash, and general pet paraphernalia signaled the arrival of 2 individuals deeply entangled in the specialized, and apparently often dramatic, world of canine breeding and showcasing. Ms. Astrid Alpha, a woman whose commanding presence was underscored by an impressive array of dog-themed accessories, entered first, her posture that of a seasoned, unyielding competitor. Following her, looking somewhat harried, was Miss Lyra Lamplight, whose youthful earnestness seemed at odds with the serious tension she exuded. Order in this veritable menagerie of canine conflicts. Judge Belinda Baflamuch declared, her voice now acquiring the measured, almost sympathetic tone reserved for complex disputes. Be seated, if your various pet carriers do not obstruct the aisles. For Ms. Alpha and Ms. Lamplight, my arcane docket forewarns of a labyrinthine saga. It resembles, I must admit, a particularly convoluted, multidimensional puzzle requiring a painstaking, piece-by-piece disentanglement. Miss Scribblefast, with a professional side that could only be achieved through years of judicial exposure, announced Case 1038, Alpha versus Lamplight. Thank you, Your Honor. You are most welcome, Miss Scribblefast. Now, Ms. Alpha, Judge Baflamuch began, focusing on the first plaintiff. It is evident from the intricate web of your complaint that you are deeply ensconced in the noble, yet often tumultuous, professions of breeding and exhibiting specialized canine companions, correct? Yes, Your Honor, my life's passion, my celestial calling. Astrid Alpha's voice was deep, resonant, and clearly accustomed to commanding attention, even from large animals. And the specific breeds of these distinguished companions, Miss Alpha. I specialize in the Verge Picards, Your Honor, a noble herding breed, and the charismatic French Nebula Hounds. Additionally, I am a co-owner of a magnificent Bissarin Stellaris. Do you happen to possess pictorial representations of these magnificent creatures, Miss Alpha? Judge Baflamuch asked, a flicker of genuine interest in her eyes. I am, of course, familiar with the appearance of a French Nebula Hound, but the other sparked my curiosity. Astrid, with practiced grace, produced a slim, crystalline tablet, and with a flourish, projected holographic images into the air. Indeed, Your Honor, behold. This is my illustrious Bissarin Stellaris, and this, if I may brag ever so slightly, is a holographic rendition of my esteemed Westminster Top 10 Verge Picker. Both, as you can clearly observe, are quintessential herding animals, imbued with profound intelligence and a stoic demeanor. The holographic images shimmered, a powerful Besaran, majestic and watchful, and a shaggy, intelligent Verch picker, looking as if it could herd a herd of nebulae with ease. Handsome, truly handsome, Ms. Alpha, Judge Baflumach acknowledged, genuinely impressed. And Ms. Lamplight, what breeds of majestic beasts grace your discerning companionship? I primarily focus on the Besaran stellaris, Your Honor, and the formidable Canis cosmicus. Lyra Lamplight's voice, though softer than Astrid's, held a determined edge. Now, what I have gleaned from this exceedingly dense tapestry of familial and professional entanglements is this: the two of you, by some twist of cosmic serendipity, first encountered one another at a grand celestial canine exhibition. You subsequently forged a bond of friendship, Ms. Alpha. Having traversed the celestial pathways of canine husbandry for a considerably longer period, decided, with benevolent intention, to act as a mentor to the younger Ms. Lamplight. And you, Ms. Alpha, extended an invitation for Ms. Lamplight to relocate her cosmic cruiser, an RV, in layman's terms, onto your private planetary property. Is this a factually sound premise? Yes, Your Honor, an act of pure mentorship and collegiality. A true gesture of stellar generosity. Astrid Alpha nodded, a subtle emphasis on the generosity. On your property, Ms. Alpha, you, I gather, maintain an extensive network of canine constellation kennels. This suggests that, in addition to your breeding and exhibition pursuits, you also offer professional canine celestial boarding services. I was just commencing my professional boarding services when Miss Lamplight relocated her cosmic cruiser. Your Honor, her assistance, I believed, would prove beneficial, given my frequent galactic travels for various exhibitions. Indeed, so a mutually advantageous arrangement seemed to unfurl. However, as is often the case in this particular dimension, celestial relationships, professional or otherwise, can become unexpectedly fraught. There came a decisive bifurcation in your intertwined destines, one which, I must deduce, proved considerably unpleasant. Judge Baflumach paused, her eyes narrowing as she mentally reorganized the convoluted plot points. This unpleasantness, if I am accurate, commenced with Miss Lamplight undertaking the boarding of several Canis Cosmicus Dobermans for a third party, for which she received a specific fiscal remuneration. Subsequently, Ms. Lamplight departed for a specialized canine constellation exhibition with one of her dogs, leaving these boarded Canis Cosmicus, by pre-arrangement, under your watchful custodianship. I assume you were anticipating some form of compensation for this particular act of canine management. Of course, Your Honor, a fair remuneration for such demanding responsibilities. Astrid Alpha declared, indignation rising in her voice. Alas, Judge Baflumach continued, her voice heavy with foreboding. These boarded Canis Cosmicus, under your temporary charge, entered into a rather regrettable canine kerfuffle with some of your own esteemed breeds. Several of your dogs, Miss Alpha, sustained physical injuries, and in your heroic attempt to intervene, you, Miss Alpha, suffered an unfortunate bite from one of the errant Canis Cosmicus. All while Miss Lamplight, it is alleged, failed to materialize with appropriate haste, delaying her return from her exhibition until its full completion. Correct, Your Honor, an egregious display of dereliction and a complete disregard for canine safety. Ms. Lamplight, upon her eventual return, initiated yet another regrettable skirmish, one which, by Ms. Alpha's account, involved an assault upon her person, a pushing, though she thankfully sustained no grievous injuries. However, this purported assault remains an ancillary component of Miss Lamplight's counterclaim, so this pushing is deemed, for the purpose of my current adjudication, judicial nonsense. Ultimately, Ms. Lamplight departed, taking her cosmic cruiser and her retinue of animals with her. Judge Baflumach sifted through a pile of documents. Ms. Alpha, your complaint lodges several demands against Ms. Lamplight. Firstly, you seek reimbursement for a mysterious RV hookup fee. A rather vague fiscal demand implying rent for the privilege of parking her cosmic cruiser on your property. Ms. Lamplight, conversely, adamantly asserts that no such agreement for cruiser rent was ever explicitly articulated or mutually agreed upon. Secondly, you claim she owes you her precise half-share for a journey to the esteemed National Canine Grand Exhibition, for which you ostensibly defrayed all the initial expenditures. And thirdly, you demand the entire sum of the money Ms. Lamplight received for boarding the aforementioned Canis Cosmicus, asserting that you were the primary caregiver during that fraught period, not her. She paused for a beat. Ms. Lamplight, you, in turn, have submitted a counterclaim. You demand remuneration for various canine exhibition fees. You claim she assaulted you, which, I must reiterate, is more judicial nonsense to be summarily dismissed. And then, most perplexing of all, you seek compensation for what you cryptically refer to as photography services, a claim that, as it stands, seems to float aimlessly in the cosmic ether. Frankly, I find the entire multidimensional squabble to be a veritable cacophony of grievances, but I shall, with relentless judicial efficiency, dissect and dispose of each segment with utmost alacrity. Ms. Alpha, let us begin at the genesis. When precisely did Ms. Lamplight position her cosmic cruiser onto your private planetary property? She arrived on the 12th of April of the current solar cycle, Your Honor. And when did this cosmic cruiser, along with Ms. Lamplight and her animals, embark upon its ignominious departure? She departed on the 17th of May, Your Honor, therefore, a mere single lunar cycle of inhabitation. During that singular lunar cycle, Ms. Alpha, what was the mutually agreed upon fiscal exchange for the privilege of situating her cosmic cruiser upon your land? What, in simpler terms, was the cruiser rent? The initial lunar cycle, Your Honor, Astrid began with an air of long-suffering generosity I was prepared to waive as an active mentorship. However, upon her rather abrupt and ill-mannered departure, coupled with the calamitous canine kerfuffle, I unequivocally informed her that I would henceforth impose a retroactive daily storage surcharge, calculated at the prevailing market rate of 40 starlight shards per diem. Ms. Alpha, Judge Baflamuch stated, her voice devoid of any sympathy for unilateral contractual decrees. Merely articulating your retrospective intention to impose a storage surcharge does not, in any legally recognized cosmic dimension, constitute a valid contract, did Ms. Lamplight, in any form or fashion, indicate her affirmative assent to this newly declared fiscal imposition? Did she, for example, verbalize, "Yes, Ms. Alpha, I gratefully embrace this new retroactive financial burden"? We ceased all direct verbal communication subsequent to the calamitous canine kerfuffle, Your Honor. Astrid snapped, her jaw tightening. Our discussions, post-incident, were non-existent. Precisely, Judge Baflamuch affirmed, therefore, Ms. Alpha, no contract. This court operates on the venerable principle of mutual celestial assent, a confluence of intentions from both involved parties, not merely the unilateral decree of one. Furthermore, if Ms. Lamplight unilaterally abandoned her material possessions, you, Ms. Alpha, retain the fundamental legal right to dispose of them as abandoned property. What transpired with Ms. Lamplight's cosmic cruiser and her remaining terrestrial belongings? Well, Your Honor, she accused me of attempting extraterrestrial extortion and summoned the local constabulary. However, I, in a spirit of benevolent conciliation, permitted her paternal unit to retrieve the majority of her possessions. So her father successfully retrieved the majority of her belongings. Excellent. Your claim regarding cruiser rent and unilateral storage surcharges is hereby dispatched into the nearest judicial black hole. It is judicial nonsense. Now, Ms. Alpha, let us address the supposed financial burden of the National Canine Grand Exhibition. What was Ms. Lamplight's specific fiscal responsibility towards this esteemed event? Originally, Your Honor, Astrid explained, her voice regaining its professional cadence. Our mutually agreed upon covenant dictated that Ms. Lamplight would utilize her highly discounted companion travel vortex ticket with Alaska Airwaves, for which she would contribute a mere 100 starlight shards. In reciprocation, I, Astrid Alpha, would, with professional alacrity, exhibit her prized canine companion at the illustrious AKC National Canine Grand Exhibition. So Ms. Lamplight was to procure a discounted ticket via her companion travel vortex program for 100 Starlight Shards, and in return, you would showcase her dog, and she would also, presumably, defray other assorted expenses. Did you work for Alaska Airwaves, Ms. Alpha? No, Your Honor. I do not possess such intergalactic affiliations. Astrid shook her head. And you maintain that these expenditures specifically for her airfare, for the bulkhead stellar kennel upgrade for her companion animals, for her dog's entry fees, and for half of her hotel accommodation, were unilaterally defrayed by you. Is that an accurate depiction of your benevolent, yet ultimately unreciprocated generosity? Yes, Your Honor, all documented, every precise Starlight Shard accounted for. I maintain meticulous celestial ledgers. Astrid pulled a binder overflowing with receipts and official-looking scrolls. Judge Baflamut, however, was already consulting Miss Lamplight's counterclaim, her gaze hardening. Ms. Lamplight, in her counterclaim, paints a rather different narrative of this fiscal interaction, Ms. Alpha. She states that, after the initial agreement for the 100 Starlight Shard discounted fare, you then unilaterally, and without prior consultation, informed her that the ticket's actual price had astronomically inflated to 650 Starlight Shards, and that you, Ms. Alpha, proceeded with this acquisition without her express consent, as she harbored grave reservations regarding such escalating fiscal burdens for an exhibition she was, in essence, being offered a ride to. Astrid spluttered. She simply didn't grasp the volatile nature of interstellar travel fares, Your Honor. The companion travel vortex ticket became unexpectedly unavailable. Whether it became unavailable, Ms. Alpha, or whether the celestial wine simply shifted, the pertinent query remains. Did Miss Lamplight specifically agree to the increased fare of 650 Starlight Shards before you unilaterally procured it? Well, no, not explicitly, Your Honor, but it was for our joint venture. Indeed, very well. Let us move to your second significant fiscal demand, Ms. Alpha, your purported boarding surcharges for the aforementioned Canis Cosmicus. What, precisely, is the genesis of these fees? Your Honor, Ms. Lamplight herself, through her own individual arrangements, imposed a boarding and training fee of 2,000 Starlight Shards per dog, per lunar cycle. This equates to 66 Starlight Shards per diem. My own professional boarding services, I might add, are a more modest 35 Starlight Shards per diem. I cared for her to boarded Canis Cosmicus for 10 full days. Therefore, I am entitled to reimbursement for those specific 10 days of demanding animal husbandry. Astrid thumped her chest. And furthermore, I also diligently attended to her for personal dogs and 7 terrestrial goats, a veritable agricultural endeavor. Ms. Alpha, Judge Baflamut interjected, holding up a hand. Let us focus solely on the remunerated Canis Cosmicus. My question, Ms. Alpha, is precise. Did you possess a formal contractual agreement with Ms. Lamplight regarding these boarding surcharges for these particular dogs? Yes, she herself declared that we would. Astrid began. Hold, Judge Baflamut commanded. Let us not jump to hasty conclusions, Ms. Lamplight. Please articulate the precise nature of any such agreement. When was this discussed? Where was this discussed? What were the explicit parameters of this verbal covenant, if one existed? Lyra Lamplight spoke up, her voice clear and precise. Your Honor of Ms. Alpha's assertion of a verbal covenant regarding boarding fees is entirely erroneous. We had, as you stated, intentions of a joint venture. However, when I attempted to broach the specific contractual and fiscal arrangements with her, I was consistently deflected. Oh, we shall discuss it next lunar cycle, she would declare, perpetually postponing any concrete dialogue. Therefore, no formal or even informal fiscal agreement for these fees was ever established, Your Honor. Astrid burst out, but we discussed it the month prior to her moving in. She knew I would charge a fee for the days I was left alone with her remunerated animals while she was traversing the stars, and she would receive the rest. Lyra shook her head firmly. No, Your Honor. The subject was never definitively concluded. She perpetually deferred the substantive discussion, leaving me in a state of chronic contractual confusion. I simply tended the animals, assuming the joint venture was progressing and that our subsequent discussions would clarify remuneration. And when precisely did these Canis Cosmicus, these Dobermans, enter your collective sphere of influence? The 13th of April, Your Honor, the very next day after my cosmic cruiser was parked upon Ms. Alpha's property. They arrived accompanied by their legitimate owners. However, it was meant to be a joint custodial venture, but Ms. Alpha proved woefully incommunicative regarding the explicit financial terms. And Ms. Lamplight, on what date did you depart for the Canine Grand Exhibition, leaving Ms. Alpha in sole custodianship of these animals? I departed on the 14th of May, Your Honor, a mere single day shy of my entire lunar cycle on her property. Very well, Ms. Lamplight. Let me attempt to construct a precise fiscal landscape here for my own clarity. What, precisely, did you, Ms. Lamplight, contribute to this supposed joint venture? Thus far, Ms. Alpha generously provided her private planetary property for your cosmic cruiser, replete with her sophisticated canine constellation kennels, accommodating both your personal companion animals and those you were professionally boarding. She ostensibly defrayed the substantial expenses for your joint pilgrimage to the National Canine Grand Exhibition, covering your airfare. The specialized bulkhead stellar kennel upgrade, her dog's registration fees, and a significant portion of the hotel accommodation. And yet, Ms. Lamplight, you, if I am correct, received fiscal remuneration directly from the owners of the boarded Canis Cosmicus, correct? I did.